They say every neighborhood has a troublemaker, but ours had something far worse. We had Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA who thought her word was law and her suspicions were gospel. The hook of this story is simple. One Saturday morning, she accused me of stealing something I didn't even know existed. And that single lie spiraled into one of the most chaotic, humiliating, and downright bizarre showdowns our block had ever seen. I was in my driveway washing my truck, minding my own business, when she came stomping down the street like she was on a mission from heaven itself, her clipboard tucked under her arm like a badge of authority, her oversized sunglasses sliding down her nose, her voice already warming up for the accusation she was about to hurl. She stopped right in front of me, planted her hands on her hips, and shouted loud enough for the entire cul-de-sac to hear, "You stole my earrings during the HOA meeting last night." I literally froze, soap bucket in one hand, sponge in the other, not even sure I heard her right. Earrings? From an HOA meeting? The same meeting where half the neighborhood had been crammed into the clubhouse eating stale cookies and complaining about lawn heights? I laughed at first because it sounded too ridiculous to be serious, but Karen wasn't joking. She pointed at me with this trembling finger like she'd cracked the case of the century. According to her, she had taken off her diamond-studded earrings during the meeting because they were pinching her ears, and she set them down on the table beside her notebook. And somehow, in the middle of everyone talking about garbage collection fees, I had allegedly reached over, swiped them, and hidden them away. The absurdity made me shake my head, but the neighbors were already peeking from their windows, and a few even stepped outside to see what the drama was about. Karen thrived under that attention. Her voice rose, her hair frizzed in the sunlight, and she acted like she was starring in her own courtroom TV show. He had motive. He had opportunity, she shouted, pacing on my driveway as though she were presenting evidence to a jury. I saw the way he looked at them, jealous, coveting, and then, poof! They were gone. I tried reasoning with her, telling her she must have misplaced them, but she doubled down, swearing she even heard me mutter something under my breath about fancy jewelry. By now the neighbors were whispering to each other, some rolling their eyes, others half believing her nonsense just to avoid becoming her next target. My dog padded up behind me, sensing my frustration, and let out a low growl. That tiny growl was all the fuel Karen needed. She gasped dramatically, clutched her bare earlobes, and spun toward the crowd that had formed. "See? Even his dog is aggressive because he knows his master is guilty." The whole scene was so absurd I almost laughed again, but the murmurs from the neighbors told me Karen was convincing a few of them. She wasn't just accusing me of theft anymore. She was putting me on trial in front of the entire block, and she was the self-proclaimed judge, jury, and prosecutor. When I told her calmly that accusing me of theft was a serious matter and she'd better have proof, she sneered and said, "If you're innocent, let me search your house. Only guilty men hide behind locked doors." Naturally, I refused. That refusal wasn't just a rejection to her, it was like throwing gasoline on a fire. She spun to the neighbors and declared, "See? He won't let me in because the earrings are inside." The whispers grew louder, some people scoffing, others pretending to nod just to stay on her good side. Karen thrived on spectacle, and that morning she put on a performance worthy of an award. But as dramatic as it was only the beginning, because Karen wasn't satisfied with gossip and accusations. She was already plotting her next move, one that would turn this neighborhood drama into a full-blown criminal disaster. The following days were tense. She went door to door whispering her version of events to anyone who would listen, repeating the same lines about me having motive and opportunity until half the block was treating me like a suspect. I ignored her at first, focusing on my work and my family, but the shift was noticeable. Kids were pulled closer when I walked by. Some neighbors gave me cold looks, and one even asked me if I had found anything shiny lately. Karen had poisoned the well, and she was just getting started. When I confronted her and warned that spreading false accusations could land her in court, she gave this shrill, fake laugh that made my dog bark again. "If you're truly innocent," she smirked, "then you won't mind if I keep digging until I find the truth." I had no idea how far she would take that promise until one afternoon. While I was at work, my phone blew up with calls from panicked neighbors. "You need to get home now. It's Karen. She's in your house." I nearly dropped my phone. Karen had apparently decided her fantasy story wasn't dramatic enough, so she broke into my property to recover her stolen earrings. And this time, her recklessness was about to catch up to her in the worst possible way. When I raced back into the neighborhood, the entire street was alive with chaos, flashing red and blue lights cutting through the night. Neighbors huddled in clusters on their lawns, phones raised to capture every second. My gut twisted as I pushed through the crowd, only to see Karen at the center of it all, her twisted crusade finally detonating in spectacular fashion. She had actually broken into my home, convinced she'd find those earrings she swore I stole. And in her frenzy, she'd torn open drawers, thrown clothes across the floor, and ripped through boxes like a burglar on a deadline. But what she didn't count on were my dogs, loyal guardians who treated her intrusion like an alarm bell. They cornered her in the living room, snarling and barking so fiercely that Karen stumbled backward, tripped over the rug, and crashed hard into the coffee table. By the time the first neighbors rushed over, she was sprawled on the floor, hair wild, blouse torn, screeching at the top of her lungs about stolen jewelry, while my dog stood protectively in front of her, teeth bared. The spectacle was absurd. Half the neighborhood watched in disbelief, some laughing, others recording every detail. When the police and paramedics arrived, Karen was being loaded onto a stretcher, still pointing at me and shouting that I had set her up and trained my dogs to attack. The officer's expression said it all, stone-cold and unimpressed. "Ma'am," he told her, "you had no right to be inside his house. That makes you the criminal here?" Her face drained of color as the whispers around her grew louder, the same people she once bullied now gleefully documenting her downfall. When asked if I wanted to press charges, I didn't even hesitate. Trespassing, attempted theft, harassment, defamation. Court came quickly, and in front of the judge, Karen tried everything. Fake tears, a sling, a desperate plea to play the victim. But the evidence was overwhelming. The videos, the police report, and, most damning of all, the discovery that the missing earrings had been in her own laundry basket the entire time. The judge dismissed her nonsense in seconds, turning instead to my countersuit, which left her saddled with fines, fees, and a permanent stain on her name. From self-proclaimed HOA queen to neighborhood disgrace, Karen's reign of terror was over. The woman who once patrolled our streets with a clipboard and a sneer was now the punchline of every whispered joke, her reputation shredded, her power gone for good.